Hi, this is Margaret Byrd, and welcome to Color Quest, and welcome to the Netherlands. I have been spending the month of June here, and I decided to come visit a good artist friend of mine in the city of Den Haag, otherwise known as The Hague. And when I pulled up in front of her studio, you will never guess what she had growing right outside. Some of the most beautiful and vibrant hollyhock. A few years ago when I was here, I was able to use some of this hollyhock to do some dyeing. And now, since I know the owner of this garden space, I can take a little bit more. So over the next 2 weeks, let's see what we can do with these hollyhock flowers here in the dye studio. But first, let's go see Tessa. Tessa, hi. Oh, I'm so happy to see you. Thank you. Yeah, so this is my friend Tessa. She is a wonderful artist and a very sweet person that I was lucky enough to meet a few years ago on the social medias.
On the social media, they're good for that.
And I came to visit her, and oh my gosh, when I came and I saw her studio space, let's just say I am jealous. And when I walked in and I saw that she also had hollyhock outside, I'm like, okay, we got to talk about her space, her work, and her connection to the organic world of plants. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about what you make, what inspires you, and maybe show a little bit about this beautiful space. I mean, the space itself is freaking amazing.
The space is wonderful, and this is my happy place. You know, this is it's got windows on all sides, light from the north. It's just like amazing. My work has like a source in nature, as in that I use like organic forms, but mostly organic forms that are used in like wallpapers and old ornamental elements in buildings, ceilings, you know, those cast iron gates. So I go around the world photographing these, and then I use them. I make my own stencils from them.
So I can see the sort of ornamental element that I would maybe imagine on wallpaper. I can see that.
Yeah,
okay.
It's like maybe a peony or a chrysanthemum. Mm-hmm. So I use those. I love those curvy lines and curvy shapes, and that's what I mainly use in my art.
And so you're currently working on this piece. I'm sure you're working on many, because that's what we learned to do.
Mostly everything on the wall is work in progress. I love to work in series where you can see a connection maybe in the palette or maybe in the forms that I use. So yeah.
Well, if I may say, you can see the thread within your work. I would be able to say this is Tessa's work, and I can see it. Yeah, I mean, you have a signature, and it's really
kind
unique.
Of come out in the recent, since Corona years maybe, because I used to work on wallpaper with ink, making use of the pattern in the wallpaper, and since then I've kind of veered away. There's been an evolution going on of my work, and now I kind of take the pattern elements that I really like and use them through the form of stencils, but make my composition with those instead of using the wallpaper.
Beautiful. There is an element of this work that feels like collage.
Like people are asking me sometimes whether or not there's pieces collaged on. I do use collage elements. Yeah. The two little ones on the side, they're mainly collage with the jelly printed papers. So I do use collage. I love collage and I love jelly printing. They're all forms that really go well with the shapes that I want to use.
Yeah, I used jelly printing for the first time in the work that I just released.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so the monoprinted leaves that I had in my encaustic work were all from jelly prints.
Oh,
very simple
I
though.
love the jelly plate.
Yeah, it is. I've had it and had not used it. And actually what crossed me over into some success with it was I used oil paint, which I had never used. And so the image was easier to pull away.
Because it is oil.
Because it is oil. And then I made multiple prints from the print. So I would print again and again and again.
You have
so I got the,
exactly.
Oil paint, and ghost printing, as my audience here on Color Quest knows, is what I prefer actually. I like the part that often gets thrown away. I tend to like that better. So absolutely beautiful work. Anything else you would like to share?
Well, if you're interested in maybe coming for like a one-on-one intensive workshop, I do like coaching for artists and in like a 5-day workshop, and I have a room here where you can then stay. You can come and I'll teach you everything that I have to teach. And my space is really close to the beach.
Oh yeah.
So this is like a very, very nice place to get to.
Well, I mean, look at this, just in terms of the space itself, look at this wonderful table space, and then just all of this incredible light. I mean, I can imagine creating here. I use my kitchen. It's really nice to have a dedicated space, and wow,
I'm very grateful for this space. And of course, you know, when I have people over, or sometimes I have an exhibition here, it's cleaned up, but now it's like really, you know, I'm working here, so I don't worry about cleaning up.
Nor should you. Actually, a studio that's too clean is suspicious.
It's suspicious.
Yeah, well,
I agree.
Awesome. I will be putting information about your website so people can reach out to you. And my hope is one day we might actually do a workshop together.
Oh, yay! That'll be fun.
Thanks, Tessa.
You're welcome.
All right, time to look at the hollyhock. When I come to this part of the world during the summer months, the flowers that are growing just in the sidewalk area outside of people's homes are fantastic. And if you go back and look at the video from a few years ago where I meandered my way around on bike and took some film of all the different kinds of flowers that people are growing, it is remarkable. And they are so beautiful. They're just growing almost like wildflowers. So I'm very excited to be able to show them to you and take a handful back to my traveling studio, and we'll make some beautiful things with them. Check this out. So this is the darkest hollyhock that she has in front of her studio. And it is not quite the black hollyhock that I used from the Color Farm to dye wool, but it is a close second, and it is really spectacular. She also has this beautiful pink, which again, I mean, look at that. How beautiful is that? I am not sure what kind of color this one will bring, but I'm guessing it could do some magic in our studio. Look at this. Oh my goodness. That is so beautiful. Look at that green inside of that pink. These, I believe, can make for some really beautiful prints. So let's start harvesting. And after I collect those, I'm also going to be picking up the blooms that have fallen to the ground. That is sure to still hold color, and we can certainly use it in one of the 2 projects that we're going to be working on the next few weeks. They are all over the ground, and I will make sure to be repurposing them for some fun in the studio. All right, back in my Dutch house and looking at what I foraged yesterday when I was at Tessa's studio and decided to put them all together. Now we're only going to do one project in today's video, and I will save some of the flowers for next week. But let's take a look at those first, and then I'll talk about what we're going to try out today. It's going to be a real experiment. Look at how pretty those hollyhocks are. They're the 3 different colors that I was able to collect. The darker and that sort of medium vibrant pink, and then those super beautiful light pink flowers. Now, at the same time, I also picked up these pieces that had fallen to the ground, and that is actually what we're going to use in today's project. So we'll save these blooms for something fun for next week. So what is it that we're going to work on today? Haven't mentioned it yet, and that is because it's going to be quite an experiment. I would like to try ice dyeing. Now, someone years ago asked me if I could ice dye in a project with her. She's a fiber artist, and I had never tried it before, still haven't. So today is the maiden voyage. I know that ice dyeing is typically used with synthetic dyes and always in a powder form. Now, you can get extracts that are in powder form of many different kinds of natural dyes, and I think that later in the summer I'll try that out when I'm back at home in the Pacific Northwest. Today, however, I am going to try it with the Hollyhock. Now, Hollyhock does produce color in the dye pot. We know that. We've had videos on it. It's not the color that you would expect. The darker black Hollyhock comes out in this beautiful teal blue, sort of grayish green blue. Now, I dyed wool with it. It's gorgeous, and that may not be the same when it's done with ice dyeing. We'll have to see. The other 2 colors, I'm not sure they're going to share much color at all in this process. Maybe even the dark ones won't, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. We are going to be using the ice so that there is a slow release of water over the dye matter, in this case a hollyhock, allowing there to be a patterned effect like a watercolor on the surface of the fiber. I will be putting 2 different kinds of fibers in. I'm going to use my good old trusty cotton napkin that has been pre-treated with aluminum acetate. I also have some silk nylon fiber in a ribbon form, and that too has been treated in an aluminum acetate mordant. So I figured I'm gonna blend the 2 in this process, and we'll see if any of those hollyhocks are gonna share their color. So here are our supplies. I have ice. This is the shape of the ice that I have. I have heard that that can make a difference in the pattern that you get. I have the silk nylon here in the ribbon form, and then I have my cotton napkin. Then I have a colander. This is where we're going to be building our scrunched design and placing the flowers in the ice. And then I have a pot underneath just to catch the water. It's possible that I'll get some dye for an in the pot dye session. I don't know that I'll have time to do that on this trip, but let's see what we get. And guess what? I almost forgot one of the most important steps that I always tell you about. And that is we need to wet our fiber first. So I'm gonna quickly soak my ribbon and my cotton in some water and do that before I create my twisted bundle. So let's do that first. All right, we'll let that soak for a few minutes just to get saturated before we start. So easy to forget steps. Not only do you always want to work with wet fiber when you're doing anything in natural dyeing, it also is going to make it so much easier to swirl it up and bunch it up. So I'm glad I realized that I had missed that step so that you can see Lots of mishaps going on over here too. Experimentation, exploration, and a sense of wonder. New expectations. Let's just see what happens. Just gonna wring it out so it's not super wet, but it's much better. Now the reason that I'm using the buds that fell to the ground is that I'm not trying to make a print of the flower itself, and I'm really just looking to extract that dye that's in the petals. It should still have quite a bit of that dye, if not all of it, in there. And the ones that are on the ground is just a great way to repurpose them. So I thought this might be a nice way to start. Maybe even there will be some concentration of color because they are closed up and smaller. So maybe that'll help. I don't know. Let's try it out. So let's start by putting a little bit of ice on the bottom. Just a small layer. And then we'll put a flower or two, I think, in this area. Maybe one or two of each of these. Just to have something on the base. Maybe like this. Why not? Now we will put the bundle on top of that so we have a start. Then I'm going to start weaving these flowers into these nooks and crannies, as well as some pieces of ice, and we'll just kind of build this bundle of flower ice and fiber. So here's what I've built so far. It's actually kind of hard to build and film, but you can see I've tucked ice down in there in different parts, kind of underneath. Now I'm going to put ice all on the top and sprinkle a few more flower petals there, and then we'll just let this sit in the colander and melt. Okay, now we just sit and wait. Resist the temptation to touch it. I poked around a little bit, but just keep your fingers out of it and let that ice melt. I thought I'd take a quick peek. It's been, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes. And I can see that something here, if you can peek in there, is definitely coming through onto the fiber. Those dark Hollyhock may be okay to print. Not quite sure what's going to happen on this silk nylon ribbon. Kind of peeking at it. Not really seeing too much, maybe a little bit. But anyway, still quite a bit of ice in there. Let's let it do its job. All right, so it's been about maybe 5 hours to have all of the ice melt, and I wanted to show it to you. So there you can see that we're definitely getting colors here. Or definitely got colors, I should say. Even the lighter pink ones are coming through. I'm not sure that the lightest pink made a difference, but we got those dark purples left a really nice blue color on the cotton, and it's pretty dark. So I think I'm just going to let this sit, and get a little bit more time just hanging out with those flower bits. I'll remove them, then we'll take a look at them. So if you look underneath, you can see the water that's melted, but it is not a dye color at all. So we'll just put that into the plants, give them a little drink, And we'll start to pull these out. Oh yeah, definitely color came through. Wow, I'm really excited about this actually. You can even see that we got some yellow, which was coming, I'm sure, from the tops of these flowers. So, yay. I'll get these taken out and we'll let it dry and see what happens. I'm not going to rinse it. I'm going to let it set for at least a week. Although there wasn't much color at all in the water that was beneath, these probably still hold color. So if I had more time, I would put these into a jar or a dye pot and see if I couldn't create a dye just to do some regular old dyeing, because these colors are so pretty and I'm sure that we could get more color out of these. All right, let's take a look. I'm pretty impressed with it. So here is the silk nylon. You can see that those dark pieces really did leave marks. I also got some of that yellow from the center portion of the flowers and even got a little bit of that medium, more magenta color. Really pretty. Obviously, there wasn't much touching this, but it works on this silk nylon. Then here, I am so happy with this. I just am blown away, honestly, that it worked as well as it did. There was a lot of folds in it, but those dark Hollyhock just left this incredible color just with ice. I mean, so this was a cold extraction, which is pretty remarkable. And again, we got the yellows. So I don't think those really light pieces left much of anything, although you know what? I bet you that that's what this is actually. From those really light pink, I think they translate more into a yellow gold. But all in all, I would say this turned out pretty well considering that this is just with Hollyhock flowers and ice. So we'll look forward to trying it again with some other natural dyes and maybe extract powders in the future. So yay. All right, I'm definitely impressed. I have to say, I really didn't think it was going to work that well or come out that dark. So yes, ice dyeing can work. And I think next time I would try it with some powdered extracts, maybe cochineal, you know that's gonna work. And maybe some other flowers like cosmos or marigolds. Didn't have access to those on this particular trip, but Hollyhock did the trick. Interesting also that with this cold way of doing it, the color that came from those darker Hollyhock was more true to the color of the flower itself. So it wasn't that steely blue that we got when we did it in the dye pot, but this really pretty vivid, I would say almost blue, maybe in the purple realm, but still really spectacular and deep. Now I'm gonna let this sit and dry and set. I'm not gonna wash it, I'll wash it down the line, but I like to give that time for those dyes to adhere a little bit more. Does it work? I don't know, but it feels like the right thing to do. Next week on Color Quest, I'd like to take those beautiful blooms and see about doing some printing. Maybe a little hammer, a little Tadaki's dome. So I hope you will join me next week as we continue to look at Hollyhock and how it can bring about color as we travel. And we can take a little tiny piece of organic color home to remember the time spent in the flower kingdom of the Netherlands. Then let's see what we get before we decide if we want to do a little steam bath after. So European, you know I'm in Holland.